Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to break it down our next matchup for UFC 323. In this one, we have Maycee Barber taking on Karina Silva. This is an interesting one. You got Maycee Barber, who is a pretty well-rounded, powerful striker on a pretty good win streak, 7-fight win streak, if I'm not mistaken, but hasn't fought in a year and 8 months. She has not fought since UFC 299, which was March of last year, and looking to finally, I guess, what's what we're looking for here? Come back into the eye of the, not casuals. I apologize, bad terminology. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Maycee Barber needs to kind of come back and gain some momentum after this long layoff she's been on. Meanwhile, she takes on Karine Silva, who's a dangerous grappler and was a really good finisher. Kind of a busted prospect, but one who has the potential to gain some momentum with a big win over Barber. You look at their last five, right? For Karina Silva, she was on a pretty good roll in the UFC and finishing her opponents like submitted Ketlin Souza, Myron Munoz. Then she fought Irene Lipsky de Silva via decision, which was her first decision I believe, in her whole career. But at the time, it was like, well, De Silva is a pretty good fighter or pretty good on the ground. So it makes sense that she would able to survive the grappling attack of Silva. But then she had one of the worst fights I'd seen against Vivian Araujo and just looked terrible in that fight. Gassed out pretty quickly. And while she won the first round, Araujo won the remaining two. It's just a bad fight overall. And then most recently at UFC 319, she avenges her loss to Diana Barbosa in rematch in a fight where most people thought Barbosa should have won that fight. And a fight where, again, Karina Silva did not look good in that one. Meanwhile, Maycee Barber, as I said, is coming off on a pretty good win streak. Excuse me. Since her last loss, which was to Alexa Grasso in a fight I think some people thought she had won, and this was back in July of 2021, she has been on a pretty good win streak. Beat Montella De La Rosa, Jessica Ai, Andrea Lee, Amanda Hibas, and most recently, Caitlin Sermonara, as I said, back at UFC 299. Okay, 5-5 win streak. I apologize for the misinformation. But you get my point. Now, it's not like Barber hasn't had scheduled fights. She was scheduled to take on Rose last July, but then pulled out due to injury. Then she was scheduled to face Aaron Blanchfield this May, and then literally pulled out at the last possible fucking second you can think of. Literally, after they did the whole fight preview, and then the fighters were supposed to walk out into the ring, she had to pull out. I can't remember what the exact condition was. I can't remember if it was heart condition, like a stroke or something. I honestly can't remember, unfortunately. I just know medical reasons. So there's a lot of Maycee Barber's shoulders, more or less. Now, granted, she's very, very young. She's 27. She still has plenty of time, but this is definitely a fight I feel like is not just it's more on Barber's shoulders than it is on Silva's. But looking at their styles, starting with Maycee Barber, she's a fighter who's kind of built on versatility, power, and pretty good experience. I mean, she's been in the UFC for a while now, since she was like 23, 24, and, a prospect to watch. She's trained under a pretty solid MMA background that mixes striking, wrestling, and jujitsu. She carries 6 wins by KO and a couple by submission, which shows she's not just a striker. She can, she is a dual threat. Lately, mostly by decision, but it's women's MMA. Most fights are going to go to the distance, is what it is. In the cage, Barber fights with aggression and pressure, but she also knows how to use technique. Her striking isn't wild, it's measured and purposeful. She uses combinations and angles, timing, and not just raw power. Her ability to blend striking with grappling and her all-rounded MMA skill sets do make her a pretty good threat at the 125-pound division. Barber's athleticism and resilience also stands out. She's shown she can hang with tough opponents, push pace, and withstand adversity. In fights that go the distance, her technical striking, fight IQ, and conditioning give her a solid path to victory. I mean, you look at the fight she had with Amanda Hibas, which was a pretty gutsy affair, and she was able to outlast Hibas, who, at least at that time, was in her prime and by no means an easy fighter to get out of there. So overall, Barber is dangerous in many facets of the game in her striking, especially her clinch. She's very good at close range strikes with those knees and bashing elbows. Pretty strong in this weight class, I would say, too, which is how she's able to sometimes muscle her foes to the ground, like she did with Sermonara or Andrea Lee. And she has the experience and composure to adapt mid fight. Meanwhile, Karina Silva brings a different flavor. Rooted in grappling, submission, and finishing instincts, her record includes many wins via knee bars, chokes, and submissions, which show she thrives when the fight hits the mat or turns into a scramble. And as I said, before the Irene Lipsky de Silva fight, she had never won a decision before, or never gone the distance before in any of her fights. In fact, the Vivian Araujo fight was the only decision loss in her career, similar to the decision win against De Silva. In fact, Barbosa too. In her last three fights, this is the first time, three times in her whole career she's seen the scorecards. And now, granted, she's not afraid to strike when necessary. De Silva does have some KOs to her name, which means she isn't purely a ground game fighter. What makes Silva dangerous is that dual threat. She can shift between striking, clinch, takedowns, and submissions pretty good, especially against the opposition she was going to until she started fighting ranked opposition. When Silva gets her opponents into grappling range or on the ground, her submission game becomes a serious threat. She's shown good takedown accuracy and the ability to finish fights quickly once the clinch or ground control is established. So Silva's style is high risk, high reward. And that has certainly been the one problem. She does gas in fights. You saw she seemed pretty tired by the end of the Barbosa fight. She was definitely tired in the Vivian Araujo fight. And while she was able to maintain top control, I did think, started to fade against De Silva. So if there's one big issue with Silva is that she does tend to fade in fights. While Barber has pretty good cardio, which I do think might give her a path to victory in this one. Now, this fight becomes a battle between Barber's balance, striking, and versatility against Silva's grappling abilities and submission threat. Give me 1 second. Man. There we go. Sorry. Camera was fuzzing out there. Barber wants to keep things at striking range or mid-range, use her speed, technical striking, and mix-up ability to avoid dangerous grappling exchanges. Her best path is to strike strong, stay active, and avoid being taken down and control the tempo. Silva's ideal scenario is, of course, vastly different than what Barber wants. She wants to close the distance, bring pressure, mix clinch or level changes, and drag the fight to the ground where she's the most dangerous. If Silva gets inside, secures a takedown or clinch, or turns things into a scramble, she has the tools to end the fight with a submission or heavy ground and pound. Again, we haven't seen that as of late, but she is still a good submission artist at the end of the day. If Barber can keep the fight upright, stay disciplined, and strike smart, I think she can use her reach, timing, and versatility and limit Silva's biggest strengths. But if Silva makes it messy, dynamic, and can get a sloppy takedown even then, I think she could control Barber on the ground for some persons. Now, Barber's shown pretty good takedown defense and ability not to be easily controlled since her loss to Roxanne Manafari. I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry, it's kind of blurring out. But Barber has shown to be well-rounded in terms not just offense but defense. So essentially, Barber's path to victory is to fight through distance management, technical striking, and all-rounded MMA IQ. Silva's path lies in pressure, unpredictability, and grappling transitions. For my official prediction, I'm going to go with Maycee Barber in this one. I think her power is honestly the biggest threat to Silva in this whole matchup. As while Maycee Barber maybe isn't like a knockout machine, she is still pretty tough in this division. Pretty powerful too. She's a strong fighter. And I don't think she's going to be easily controlled against the cage nor on the ground against Silva. As I think Barber, who is relatively on the shorter side against most of these flyweights, is going to be able to be very hard to control in this one. And I trust her cardio far more than I trust Karine Silva's by a long shot. And I think if Barber can not just stay disciplined, but kind of stay in Karine Silva's face, make Silva work constantly and make her fight on the back foot, I think she's going to gas out Silva early, like maybe to round 2, and maybe even find a late TKO. So my official prediction, I'm going to go with Maycee Barber. And I mean, it's a women's fight. Most of these go to a decision, but I am always a man who enjoys the violence. So I think maybe Maycee Barber can get a late TKO and remind us all why she's fixed in like the top 6 to 7 of this division. But with that being said, that's been my prediction for this fight. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below who you think's going to win. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. Stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see you all next time.